Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about the signs that show you that you have a wounded inner child. So most of us, if not all of us, have at some level, a wounded inner child. And today we're going through the signs that your inner child needs healing. The things that we're talking about today are in this book, Homecoming, and by John Bradshaw. So, John Bradshaw, Homecoming, Reclaiming and Healing Your Inner Child. This is the book that I'm currently reading, and I'm actually studying it, so I'm taking my time and not just reading through the whole thing, but I'm actually studying, taking notes and all that stuff, because it helps me on my hypnotherapy practice, and not just to help other people, but also myself and my own inner child who needs a lot of healing. So let's get started on the signs. So, what John Bradshaw says in his book is that the wounded inner child contaminates our lives. And so we're going to go through the contaminate word. So every word, every letter of the word is one of the signs that we're going to talk about today. So contaminate. Actually, I can show you a piece of the book. So here you can see, is it focusing? You can see the contaminate, and we're going through all of the signs. So sign number 1 that you might need some inner child work is codependence. So codependence is when you depend a lot on someone else or some other people. Codependence is when you feel like you can't live without the other person. You lose your sense of identity and you absorb what that person is, what that other person is, and you kind of lose yourself in that process of absorbing that other person, and you lose your identity, and you can't really make decisions without that person. You can't really enjoy yourself without that person. And so the author characterized the codependence as a loss of identity. So you're no longer yourself. You don't even know most of the times who you are, and you're no longer in touch with who, your feelings, your needs, your desires. You only do what the other wants. You only, want what the other wants. You never have an opinion. You just go with it. So that's one sign that you have a wounded inner child. Sign number 2 that you have a wounded inner child is offender behaviors. So the offender behaviors is when you reenact something that you have experienced in the past. So for example, you take out on other people the things you have suffered yourself. In the book, I am going to share a little bit of the book, so it's not me saying, it's in the book. So John Bradshaw says that Hitler was chronically beaten in his childhood. He was humiliated and toxically shamed by a sadistic father who was the bastard son of a Jewish landlord. So Hitler reenacted the most extreme form of the cruelty on millions of innocent people. So that is an extremely extreme example of an offender behavior, but I really wanted to put it here. I don't mean to justify anything, of course, but if we can pinpoint those behaviors in ourselves and really, recognize that and see that we have to be honest with ourselves, because sometimes we don't want to see it, but if we do want to heal, and we really start to analyzing and seeing our actions for what they are and what they come from, and if we can really recognize the offender behaviors, if we all can heal that in ourselves, each one of us can heal that in ourselves, so we stop perpetuating that cycle of violence, of cruelty, of abuse, and the world will become a lot better, right? So sign number 3 that you might have a wounded inner child is narcissistic disorders. So it says in the book that every child needs to be loved unconditionally, and without that unconditional love, non-judgmental love, a child kind of loses themselves, that doesn't really know who they are because they're always being molded by someone else's opinion. And then the sense of I am is damaged. And then a child that is deprived of that love, that unconditional love of who they are, grows up with an insatiable need, craving for love, for attention, for affection. So it becomes all about me and having to fulfill that because it didn't have when you were a kid, when you should have, like in the first phases of your life. So I'm gonna read a little bit of the book here. The needs of a narcissistically deprived adult children is a key word here, take various forms. So they are disappointed in their relationship, like one after another. They're always disappointed. They're always looking for the perfect lover who will feel all of their needs. So there's one savior that will do everything for you, that will make your life perfect. They become addicts. And addiction can be a whole range of things. It doesn't have to be only substance abuse and addiction, but it can be gambling, it can be shopping, it can be sex. So they seek material things and money to give them a sense of worth. They become performers, actors or athletes, because they need the continuous admiration of their audience. So I'm not saying that every actor and athlete is narcissistic, okay? What I mean, what the point is that those people have more tendency to become someone in the center of everybody's attention. And most of them, when they do have kids, they use their own kids to meet their narcissistic needs. So they're just passing it forward, generation to generation, and that is also the offender behavior, acting out, that we're going to talk about. So the fourth, is it the fourth? Yeah. So the fourth sign that your inner child is wounded is trust issues. When our caretakers or parents, when we are young, when they are untrustworthy and you know, are let down by those people who you're supposed to be able to trust, you develop a sense of distrust about anyone. And that sense of distrust leads to a control. I'm not sure if I can say like a control disorder, but it's like a need for controlling everything. So if you are in control, you remain safe. Children, they learn trust from their caretakers. So if their caretakers are trustworthy, they will learn how to trust someone. They will know that there are people that can be trusted. But if they're not, they won't learn how to trust people. They will learn to distrust them. They will learn that no one can be trusted. If not even their parents, their caretakers could be trusted, who in the world could be, right? Okay, so sign number 5 that you might have a wounded inner child is acting out or acting in behavior. So acting out is the offender. Behavior is the taking it out on other people. In many different ways you can become anger towards other people. So you reenact the violence on other people. You pass it forward for future generations or the people around you. You have spontaneous age regression, which is like you have a behavior that is not appropriate to your age, so you would act like a child even though you're a grown-up person, like being act like a spoiled child and rebellious in an appropriate way for your age, right? And acting in would be to have those things, those energies, those emotions turned against yourself. So you punish yourself. You take it on to yourself. So you lack self-love, you lack self-respect, self-worth. And he says here in the book that emotional energy that is acted in can cause severe physical problems, including gastrointestinal disorders, headaches, backaches, neck aches, severe muscle tension, arthritis, asthma, heart attacks, and cancer. And also being accident prone is a form of acting in. One inflicts punishment on oneself through accidents. So yeah, things I would never imagine, they can have a really deep reason. Okay, sign number 6 that you have a wounded inner child is magical beliefs. So normally children are magical, but when children hear like a parent say, you're killing your mother, you were making your mother upset, you made your father angry, that makes the child believe that their behavior is directly responsible for someone else's feeling. We know that's not true. We are all responsible for our own feelings, and that's why each person can have a different reaction to the same thing, to the same behavior towards them, like to the same experience. he says here in the book that other contaminating magical beliefs are, if I have money, I'll be okay. So you're expecting something else to do for you what you need to be doing for yourself. If my lover leaves me, I'll die. One thing has nothing to do with the other, right? If I try hard, the world will reward me. Waiting will bring about wonderful results. So it's always something that needs to happen in order for you to feel a certain way. And what actually happens is that we are responsible for our feelings first. Whatever happens is on the outside, so we're responsible for what happens inside of us. And like waiting for the right person to come along, and then you will be happy. Waiting for the right man, chasing the right woman, and then you will feel something, right? So in the law of attraction is what is, the law is that you first have to feel it for things to manifest. And many of us have learned the opposite. If this or that happens, then the feeling comes. But the right, I don't want to say right or wrong, but like the most effective way is the other way around. You first have to feel it for it to manifest. 7th sign that you have a wounded inner child is intimacy dysfunctions. So like the trust issues, the intimacy dysfunction is kind of connected, because if you can't trust anyone, you won't be able to trust a partner. If you can't trust your partner, you can't really be intimate with that person if there's no trust. And also the codependence that you may have with that person. Also, you lose your sense of self and what you want and what you like and what you dislike, and you don't put you don't have your boundaries, because you don't really know where you end and the other person begins. So there's no boundaries, and you need boundaries to be intimate with someone, and you need that boundaries respected. And he even says here that it is impossible to be intimate if you have no sense of self. So you need to be whole. You need to be one person, whole, and valuing yourself and your needs and desires in order to be intimate with someone who will respect that. And you will also respect them because you're being respected. It's just a natural, healthy way to relate to someone. Sign number 8 that you might have a wounded inner child is non-disciplined behavior. So he says in the book that discipline is a way to reduce life's suffering, which is true. Discipline helps us in our daily life and in our a long-term life. So having discipline helps us achieve our goals, helps us have a routine, will make our lives more attainable on a daily manner, and in a long term will help us live a life that we want, achieve the things that we want. And it also, being disciplined is also being responsible, telling the truth, being honest, which are things that we value in our society. But being excessively disciplined can also lead you to become a people pleaser, too rigid, and obsessive and too obedient. And so when you're like too obedient, you're blindly obedient, you also kind of lose your sense of self, your sense of desires and needs. If you're overly obedient, you are deserting yourself in a way. So a good thing here would be balance, being disciplined but not over disciplined. So if you're over or under disciplined, that is a sign that you have a wounded inner child. Sign number whatever, I don't even know anymore. Sign number 9 that you may have a wounded inner child is addictive and compulsive behaviors. You can be addicted to alcohol, drugs, food, sex, gambling. It talks about in the book activity addictions, cognitive addictions, feeling addictions, and addiction to things. So there are different categories, I feel like, of being addicted to something. And so you can become addicted to something because one of your parents were addicted to that thing, and you again are acting those behaviors in or out. You just, reenacting that, you just perpetuating that. You can become an addicted person because you want to escape something, you don't want to feel a feeling, you don't want to think a thought. So there's, the addiction, that activity or whatever it is becomes a distraction to, something you don't want to feel. Any activity, it says in the book that any activity can be used to alter feelings, and activities alter feelings through distraction. So you might be using something to avoid some feelings. So at the core of most addictions, no matter what the genetic factors, is a wounded inner child who is in constant state of craving and insatiable neediness. So that person really feels like there's always something that they need, they're not, and that need is not being met. And okay, so sign number 10 that you may have a wounded inner child is thought distortions. So one way of thought distortion is the absolutizer. This is weird word. So it's like all or nothing. Is that polarity? It's one thing or the other. Children are usually that way. I don't think that children understand yet all the gray area that exists between two extremes, two polars, right? So for example, it says in the book, if my father abandons me, all men will abandon me. So that is one way to, make an absolute of an idea of something that happened to you, is like that man is all men. That man is, exactly what other men are going to behave, right? That is a way of absolutizing that concept. But there's a huge gray area. It doesn't mean that if your parent, your father abandoned you, that all men in the world will do the same. He also says that children are they think egocentrically, so they tend to personalize, make everything personal. So everything that goes wrong is about me. Like, what is wrong with me? What is, what did I do wrong? Why am I not good enough? And feeling that it's because of you, that's all about you, is a way of being selfish, but it's a wounded child. It's, a child that is hurting and feeling that there's something wrong with them, and not, make everything personal, right? So other ways of thought distortion, like I said, is the absolutizing things and making it very extreme, and polarizing everything and not seeing the gray area. We can see that happening in different countries. We can see that idea being endorsed by people in power, right? So right now we're living in a world that is very polarized, and that's a thought distortion. So sign number 11, and it's our last sign. 11, I really don't have another finger to make it 11, but that will do. It's emptiness, apathy, depression. So feeling empty. So he says in the book that the depression is the result of a child's having to adopt a false self, leaving the true self behind. So they have to play a role in society, right? They have to, they have to behave, they have to be this, they have to be that, and they leave their true self behind, and they abandon their true self. And as they do abandon their true self, they feel empty. So they don't feel authentic, they don't feel like they are being themselves, and that leads to, an apathy, like feeling nothing. You start feeling nothing. You start feeling empty and disconnected from the experiences you have, from the emotions that your life provides you. It's like you're always acting, you're always performing for someone else, and that person's true self is never there, is never present. And he says that a client of his described it this way: it's like I'm standing on the sidelines watching life go by. There's no sense of control, and it's not like an excessive control, but there's no sense of power in your own life, because you are, step aside and you just let things happen, and you feel nothing, and you don't feel like yourself. You feel like you're acting. It's just a role, and and life doesn't feel very real because we are absent from that experience. And so these were the signs in John Bradshaw book Homecoming. These are ways that our inner child contaminate our adult life, and what my intention with this. And my intention with this video is to raise awareness, and I want you to really be honest with yourself and see where you recognize, you know, those behaviors in your life, if you do at all recognize any of those behaviors, so you can heal that. You can heal your inner child. You can, you know, it's an adventure. It's an emotional adventure, but still it's an adventure, and it will only bring you great things, because when you start healing those things that you have always, you know, felt and acted upon, like those things that you think is just a personality trait, it's actually traumas. It's actually you know, byproduct of trauma, byproduct of a wounded inner child that, you know, needs to be healed, needs to be taken care of, needs to be loved and protected. And you are the person who can do that for your inner child. So I want you to know that you have all the power, and you can heal your inner child and live a healthier life, achieve more of your goals, achieve, you know, the life that you want. And yeah, I hope this video was informative, and I just wanted to raise awareness, and I hope that was what I achieved, hopefully. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked it. And if you did, you know what to do. Give it a like, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.